George Martin once described Daemon Targaryen like this: "In his day there was not a man so admired, so beloved, and so reviled in all Westeros. He was made of light and darkness in equal parts. He's also the closest thing the Dance of the Dragons has to a main character. He's the rogue prince, the dragon knight, the fan favourite, Matt Smith with a sword." The most quoted line about Daemon in Fire and Blood isn't about his glory, or his villainy, or his dragon. It's this: "He was the grandson of a king, the brother of a king, husband to a queen. 2 of his sons and 3 of his grandsons would sit the Iron Throne, but the only crown that Daemon Targaryen ever wore was the crown of the Stepstones, a meagre realm he made himself with blood and steel and dragonfire and soon abandoned." Read that again. He won an actual crown, with his own hand, and he gave it away. That's the pattern of his entire life. Every time Daemon Targaryen gets close to the thing he says he wants, he sets it on fire. So what does he actually want? To answer that, we have to go back to the wound, because every great character in Martin's world has one. In the show, we meet Daemon as a confident bastard with a cool sword and a cooler dragon. But in the books, his entire psychology is set before he can speak. Daemon is born in 81 AC, the second son of Prince Balon and Princess Alyssa, who were both children of King Jaehaerys because Targaryens are like that. His older brother Viserys is 4 years his senior, and when Daemon is barely 2 years old, his mother dies, bringing a third son into the world. The third son also dies. Their father Balon never remarries, so Daemon is 2, his mother is gone, his father is wrecked, and his brother is the heir. Everything that follows is downstream of this. Daemon's grandmother Queen Alysanne raises him. His grandfather King Jaehaerys knights him at 16 and gives him the Valyrian steel longsword Dark Sister, the same blade Visenya carried at the conquest. Daemon claims the dragon Caraxes after his uncle Aemond dies, so he's got a 200-year-old sword and a dragon someone else flew first. That's the joke about Daemon. Everything he has, he inherits second. Second son, second sword, second dragon. Then in 101 AC, the Great Council at Harrenhal passes over Princess Rhaenys and her son Laenor and chooses Viserys as Jaehaerys' heir. Daemon, by the way, is one of the men pushing hardest for Viserys. He gathers sworn swords against any Valyrian attempt to crown Laenor. He fights for his brother, and then his brother becomes king, and Daemon is what he was before. The other one, that's the wound. The HOTD writer Sarah Hess put it bluntly. Daemon, he's not going to therapy. He's not going to sit down and be like, "I just feel like I lost my mum when I was 2. He doesn't have to. The pattern speaks for him. What he claims to want, if you ask Daemon what he wants, he'll tell you. Loudly. In the show's first episode, he confronts Viserys.
"You have no allies at court but me! I have only ever defended you! Yet everything I've given you, you've thrown back in my face!
You've only ever tried to send me away to the Vale, to the City Watch. Anywhere but by your side. 10 years you've been king, and yet not once have you asked me to be your hand.
Why would I do that?
Because I'm your brother."
He sits the Iron Throne in an empty hall alone like a kid trying it on. He throws a brothel feast for his soldiers and toasts himself as the heir for a day, the night his brother's son dies in childbirth. 3 witnesses report it. Daemon never confirms or denies. Already his story is being told by people who weren't actually in the room. So one answer is, he wants the throne. Another is glory. In Fire and Blood, when his brother makes him Master of Coin, and then Master of Laws, Daemon hates it. He says, Dark Sister was made for nobler tasks than slaughtering sheep. She has a thirst for blood. He wants war. He gets it, in 109 AC, in the Stepstones, where he cuts off the Pirate King Crabfeeder's head with Dark Sister himself. A third answer is Rhaenyra. He says it out loud in front of Viserys and the entire small council.
"Give me Rhaenyra to take to wife, and we will return the House of the Dragon to its proper glory."
Of course. It's not my daughter you lust for, is it? It's my throne.
So that's the menu. Throne, glory, Rhaenyra. Daemon will tell you all 3. But here's Matt Smith, who's played him for 2 seasons. People often ask me, is Daemon after power? And I've never thought he is. I think he's more interested and addicted to being a sort of agent of chaos. And here's showrunner Ryan Condal. Daemon is not somebody that necessarily ever wanted the throne. He just wanted Viserys to say that he could have the throne. He was looking for the approval of his older brother. So the people writing him, and the actor playing him, both think he doesn't actually want the things he says he wants. Which means we should probably look at what he does, not what he says. Example 1. Daemon spends 3 years in the Stepstones. He bleeds there. His friend Corlys Velaryon backs him with ships. In 109 AC, after the Crabfeeder is dead and the islands are his, Daemon declares himself king of the Stepstones and the Narrow Sea. Corlys himself places the crown on his head. He's a king. 2 years later, Daemon flies Caraxes back to King's Landing. There's a tourney for the 5th anniversary of Viserys and Alicent's marriage. Daemon circles the tourney grounds 3 times on a dragon, lands, and walks up to his brother. He kneels, and he hands Viserys the crown. In the show, his line is, "I know that there is only one true king, your grace. My crown and the Stepstones are yours." He won an actual kingdom, by his own hand, and he gave it away to get a hug. Example 2. Daemon is married, by his grandmother Queen Alysanne, to Lady Rhea Royce of Runestone. It's a fine match. The Royces are an ancient and proud house in the Vale, with bronze armour older than the Targaryens, and Daemon hates her. He calls her his bronze bitch. She calls him the stallion that could not mount. The marriage is barren. He petitions Viserys to set it aside. Viserys refuses. In 115 AC, Rhea falls from a horse and cracks her skull on a stone. She lingers 9 days, seems to recover, gets up, and dies within the hour. Daemon flies north to put my wife to rest. Gildane, the historian, dryly adds, though more like it was in the hopes of laying claim to her lands, castles and incomes, in that he failed. Lady Jane Arryn tells him to get out of the Vale. Even in death, Rhea Royce is winning. In the show, the writers go further. They have Daemon murder Rhea with a rock. Her last line is, "I knew you couldn't finish," which is the show externalizing the impotence anxiety the books only hint at. Either way, book or show, the result is the same. Daemon had a marriage to one of the great houses of the Vale. He poisoned it so completely he ends up exiled from a region he once owned by right. Example 3. In 120 AC, Daemon's second wife Laenor dies in childbirth. 6 months later, Rhaenyra's first husband Laenor is killed by his lover. Daemon and Rhaenyra wed at Dragonstone in a Valyrian rite. Fire and Blood calls the haste unseemly. The chroniclers disagree about who killed Laenor. Sept and Eustace says it was a lover's quarrel. Mushroom, the fool, says Daemon bribed the killer, met him by ship offshore, slit his throat, and dumped him in the sea. Gildane's verdict, no shred of proof was ever found for Daemon's involvement. But the rumour is enough. The Greens never need proof. Otto Hightower's case against Rhaenyra is built in part on the things Daemon does in her name. He has Rhaenyra. He has 2 true-born sons by her. He's one breath away from being Prince Consort of Westeros. And his haste, his temper, his shadow over Laena's death, all of it hands the Greens their entire legitimacy argument on a plate. Daemon is the reason Otto can call Rhaenyra a whore who married her uncle to cover up murder. He gets the woman. He poisons her claim. Example 4. Aemond and Vhagar kill Lucerys at Storm's End. Daemon writes a raven to King's Landing. An eye for an eye, a son for a son. Lucerys shall be avenged. He sends 2 men into the Red Keep, a former gold cloak called Blood, and a rat catcher called Cheese. They tie up Queen Helena and her 3 children. They make her choose which son to die. She names her youngest. They behead her oldest, 6-year-old Jaehaerys instead. Did Daemon order it like that? Mushroom says yes. Sept and Eustace says Daemon orchestrated it, and Rhaenyra smiled when the head arrived. Muncan says the killers improvised when they couldn't find Aemond. The book gives you 3 Daemons and tells you to pick one. The outcome is what matters. Daemon finally has the war he's wanted his entire life. Rhaenyra is the wronged party. Public sympathy is hers, and Daemon turns it. He gives the Greens a martyr, a 6-year-old prince. He breaks Helena. He transforms a succession dispute into a contest of atrocities, which Rhaenyra will lose because the Greens have more soldiers and more castles. Daemon's vengeance for Rhaenyra is the thing that loses Rhaenyra her throne. That's the pattern. 4 times, 4 prizes, the same shape. He gets close, and he sets it on fire. Stepstones, Rhea, Rhaenyra's marriage, Rhaenyra's war. Now, one more thing about Daemon. We don't actually know which of these stories is true. Fire and Blood is told by 4 historians, all of them lying in different directions. Mushroom is the court fool, who pretends to be a lackwit and writes a salacious memoir claiming to have been present for everything, including things he obviously wasn't. Septon Eustace is the pious moralist who hates Rhaenyra and softens the Greens. Grand Maester Muncan is writing a generation later, drawing on another Maester's prison cell confessions. And Archmaester Gildane, the framing narrator, just tells you which version each one gave, and shrugs. So when Daemon spends a night with 16-year-old Rhaenyra in a brothel, in the show's 4th episode, the book gives you 3 rooms, 3 Daemons. Eustace says he took her maidenhood. Mushroom says she stayed a virgin, and Daemon trained her in the womanly arts, using Mushroom himself, then smuggled her out of the Red Keep dressed as a page boy. Grand Maester Runsighter, the one with no axe to grind, just says they quarrelled. About Helena's reaction to her son's death, Fire and Blood gives you the cleanest line in the whole book. Mushroom says she cried, and Septon Eustace says she smiled. That's it. That's the entire historical record. About Alys Rivers, the woman waiting for Daemon at Harrenhal, Gildane doesn't even pick. A serving wench who dabbled in potions and spells, says Muncan. A woods witch, claims Septon Eustace. A Malign enchantress who bathed in the blood of virgins to preserve her youth, Mushroom would have us believe. This is the engine of the books. You don't get the truth, you get the residue. Which means the question, what does Daemon Targaryen actually want, can never be answered by what he says. It can only be answered by the shape his life leaves behind, and that shape is a chain of crowns won and discarded. Which brings us to Harrenhal, and to Season 2. In the books, Daemon takes Harrenhal during the dance and rules it for months. Fire and Blood's most striking line about his time there is this: whatever her powers, it would seem Daemon Targaryen was immune to them, for little is heard of this supposed sorceress whilst the prince held Harrenhal. In other words, in the books, Alys Rivers does not get inside Daemon's head. The show changes that deliberately. Sarah Hess says, "It just felt like this really interesting, cool way to get into Daemon's psyche against his will almost." Ryan Condal puts it differently. Daemon is, in many ways, like Jack Torrance at the end of The Shining when he checks into the hotel. So Season 2 takes Daemon to Harrenhal, breaks him, and forces him to look at his own pattern. The visions are not subtle. In one, young Rhaenyra sits the Iron Throne and tells him in High Valyrian, "You created me, Daemon, yet you're now set on destroying me, all because your brother loved me more than he did you." He cuts off her head. Her severed head asks him, "This is what you always wanted, is it not?" In another, he chases Aemond through the halls. Aemond turns. It's Daemon, wearing the eye patch. In another, his dead mother appears, tells him he was always meant to be the leader, that he was her favourite son. Alys Rivers afterwards, "It's a pity, don't you think, that you never knew your mother?" In another, he watches Viserys name Rhaenyra heir. The doors of memory will not open. He hears the crown fall and he doesn't pick it up. Each vision is one of his discarded crowns coming home. The brother, the throne, the mother, the wife, the eye-patched second son he half-created when he encouraged Aemond's bullying years before. Daemon is forced finally to see the shape, and in the Season 2 finale he kneels to Rhaenyra. He says, "You are the true queen, Rhaenyra. First of her name, protector of the realm. I am meant to serve you, and all of these with me, until death or the end of our story." She replies, in High Valyrian, "Leave me again at your peril." And he says, "I could not. I have tried." That's the only thing in 2 seasons that sounds like Daemon telling the truth, what he actually wants. So, what does Daemon Targaryen actually want? He doesn't want the throne. The throne is right there in the Season 2 vision. The crown literally falls in front of him, and he watches it lie there. He doesn't want glory. He had glory. He had a kingdom of his own making. He gave it back. He doesn't want Rhaenyra in the simple way he says he does. If he did, he wouldn't have spent a decade picking fights that weakened her claim. What Daemon Targaryen wants is to be chosen by his brother, who was raised to be the heir while Daemon was raised to be the spare, by his father, who died first, by his mother, who died sooner, by the realm that passed him over at the Great Council, by the wife who was given to him, the wife he chose, and the wife he stole, none of whom were free to pick him without something else being on the table. And here's the cruel thing about wanting to be chosen. You can't earn it. The moment you earn something, it stops counting as a choice. So every time Daemon takes a crown by his own hand, the crown is poisoned because he won it, which means nobody picked him. He has to give it back. He has to do it in front of Viserys, kneeling, holding it up so his brother can finally see him and say the words that would have ever fixed any of this. Viserys never says them, not until he's dying, and Daemon isn't in the room. George Martin has called Daemon one of the greyest characters in the entire story of Westeros, made of light and darkness in equal parts. To some he was a hero, to others the blackest of villains. And the reason Daemon is so grey is that the question of whether he's a hero or a villain depends entirely on something he never gets. The affirmation of someone with the authority to choose him. Without it, he's a plague. With it, he'd have been a great prince. He spends his entire life trying to extract that affirmation by force, with Dark Sister, with Caraxes, with crowns and corpses and the body of a 6-year-old child. None of it works, because the one thing you cannot win at sword point is the right to be loved freely. So is Daemon Targaryen a villain? He's a man who wanted his brother to pick him, who burned a kingdom and a queen and a dynasty trying to make that happen, who finally accepted, in a haunted castle ruled by a woman who saw straight through him, that his brother was never going to do it, and who knelt at the end of his story so far to the only person left who could. Rhaenyra herself, talking about him to Mysaria, gives the cleanest line. He wished to possess me, but not to be possessed, and to see me take hold, finally, of what he always believed to be his. He always believed it was his. He never quite wanted it. He just wanted someone to hand it to him and say his name. Thanks for watching. We're making more videos on House of the Dragon, so press like and subscribe if you want more.